a week listening to a chicken electrically through it. The other parameters I developed for because we're all absolutely pissed off about both of those things. And spend a lot of time paying productive pursuits as a result. But fortunately, somebody was watching over and I made some choices that were productive and have ended up with a really just sort of I continue on to all the again in a variety of things. Well, when I get back for 50 years of it to say the underlying theme is really community development, like I know. And basically, years ago actually, I was on a phone call with a group within a Canada called the 2000s. Minnesota is dealing with dementia. And ended up getting a Closet Genius Award line. And she eventually turned asset-based community development. Because I come, but I understand on top of really good that is for she never into some research and found that everything that I've been doing for the last 40 years was upside down if you looked at it when I was simply a student, thought of it, including. It was always based in a house with no other religion. And then, we were there to stay, right? And that's like based development. Turned out on our end, so wait a minute, we all have resources. We all have our worst assets that we can deliver to build our own mortality projected and the humans have productive nonetheless living. So that's the round after round. And like what Sergio mentioned that it's such an area how we're doing that. But okay. So we managed to connect up and we were project and more working that we took locally up to Bengay. Salazar, I should have been myself good. Very nice project. Had a show. That's how I ended up here as through my association with what I short my lesser known luminaries that should be elevated in squares that used to win years came around the world. So, thank you for being here. You to repeat after that, voices that I heard over time was always making was straight. And probably having fun and someone different perspectives than that you might have put it out or academic sources. Right. So when we speak about affordable housing, we often become like wonders. Longevity, remember, health, the person works, income threshold, vacancy rates, funding yields, all that really matters. But today, I really want to have some working out and about what we begin with choice. And I mentioned some of my voices that I may not have been from Gamble, academic, other sources. So one that I would quote for you is from George Jones. So if you may know, George Jones was a founding country singer with an amazing voice. Who was released by alcoholism. He's inherent of. And he sang, I've had choices since the day that I was born. I've heard voices telling me right from them. If I had listened, I wouldn't be here today, living and dying with the choices I made. That's a collection from somebody who was being brutally honest or regretting which choices they made. and Reddit. But it turns a lot more free. His dreams about choice was actually meant but the real. Systems don't erase choice. Regulations will erase choice. Constructed constrained budgets don't erase choice. And achievable housing, then looking at and other systems, you still choose. We choose whether residents the how needs to be managed for people's treatment. We choose whether compliance becomes an excuse or a foundation upon which dignity is built. We choose whether housing is transactional or relational. We even with constrained systems, so our choices. And those choices accumulate. That defies not only us, their institutions. If we claim agency for ourselves, we have to recognize agency in players. Respect doesn't mean agree. Respect means technology and reason has a right to choose, even when we wish they will make it better choice. They choose whether they're in. They choose how to speculative the items. They choose how to allocate their scarce resources. They choose risks we not even wish them to take. And sometimes those choices create consequences. And sometimes we enforce least provisions. Sometimes we are the deed. But even enforcement, we can do something much deeper. I recognize the right to choose. I don't create with dignity. And I cannot support the choices you make. That statement of honors the other agency and likely reminds them of the voices they have to turn in an elevator. When residents feel managed, they resist. When they feel respected, they engage. ABCD is doctrine of accountability. It claims accountability and mutual recognition. Agency without respect becomes paradox. Control without recognition becomes oppression. Dignity is anchored in the regulation of choice. That's where the we begins. Long as law and as all the elders, those taller architects that fit those communities all taught it. So we're in those there were the structures of culture, of expectation, of tone, like trust. And long full of presses through, it reminds us that our todays and yesterday, every day, right, the march with which we go. And that at the elder days of our mother's route as greatest each minute and unseen part where the dogs see other. I mean, and unseen parts, the beams that are concealed behind plastic, the joints to people admire, the supports that blend in your obey, and topic lives in those unseen parts. How about see rivet coatings? They see compliance reports, they see capital standards, because ensure there's construct the ice blotter. The tone of a meeting, in the way a resident is abreast in a whole, and then discretion exercised in a difficult moment. And the conversation that never breaks the river with. Federal housing doesn't fracture first in a flicker. It fractures in unseen arcs, and it strengthens the truth. Well, eviction narrows its tail and her one. If I can stop one heart from liking, you should not live in the rain. Except that ease one lies the aching, but cool and gay. For and training minded, you was dust again. I will not live. Not a system, not a portfolio, and her human life, tangled. Scale matters. You've got to have scale up, give us that. But scale without insight becomes machinery. If one addiction is prevented, if one resident feels seen, if one neighbor becomes an ally, by the name outer sir, I've never not working today. Another one of us more academic though, who says, Chris Christopherson said, why do you Lord? What did I ever do to deserve in the mind of the pleasures are you? It's a question of humility. Why do some of us set up the decision tables? Why do some of us control count? Why do some of us score cheese? And others wait. We can ask ourselves, why maybe those power does humility, each stewardship, and get them in control. That's the millennium artist were that's the Christian wall and white Christian. It's not primarily a program, it's an orientation. It's the discipline that the Christian agency, the discipline construction, articulate, to discipline with ritualist doubt, with essential stewardship of power. But if there's only body, it wouldn't endure. Also has to be economic reset. And maybe the closing. So let's consider a 1,500 unit federal housing portfolio that mid-Callan, Illinois. Some basic assumptions. Let's assume that it's running at 8% vacancy rate. Call it optimistic and good market. Has 45% annual turnover, which is pretty illegal. Takes about 60 days to make a unit ready to re-rent. Somebody needs. Let's assume an average rent was $12 million per month, and that it costs about $4,000 per unit to that town. So, 1,200 units, 1,500 units, 8%, 120 units. Times $1,200 to put a lost rent. That's $1,728,000. Turnover at 45% will be 675 exits. Times 4 capsies to unselling of lost rent. During our 68 ton is about $1.6 million. So the hat out of a lot. And $806 million. That doesn't include staff turnover amount, return, administrative drag. So I haven't hindered any history of $1,000. Somewhere between 6.3 and 6.5 is below that. Any stability. Now let's check an ABCD approach to the management of that push forward. And that could bring your steps and duty and agency to the residents' building. And just did a moderate improvement. Let's say that vacancy on the date got to 5. Turnover drops from 35%. And we put 20 days off in the gut letter. Better the rise past. People online that. He had an additional 300,000 for staff brand and all that. I said they want for the majority is 4 million. So we're saving like $2 million. But it's all about nutrition. Why Greenwell can find it and I could develop a pretty robust scope of resident service needs with that $2 million. I still get a pretty good sizable log from one end like that in the year. So now let's just project that $2 million of 5 years by 5.5% capitalization rate. It just increased the value of that portfolio. I jumped to 40 mil plus. It's called your fixed cash flow, and technically, that's the valuation. And I think that's just one element in a couple of cost avoidance. If we could get only 75 evictions annually at $2,000 a household, it has a value of about $750,000. Housing stability is an upstream cost control. So the more majority of the economic people that really are not intention, they reinforce each other. When residents feel respected, they stay. When they stay, costs decline. If costs declines, we have a stronger opportunity with stewardship. And when stewardship strengthens, like the third magistrate, when stewardship like Christians, public systems failures. But just up for them to be inexpensive instability as it has. Some go ahead choices or delters hidden the unseen hubs. People refuse to the brain. The guy has IV, a trap, to main more than you have to argue with wolves. Affordable housing is not all that by goodness. It's about the kind and supportive, respectful community. They're willing to be stuck, even on the under pressure. And that was ABCD. The Crucible, years us and Ben, also there up to that. It wait.
So that's one of the questions that is good. So, a question.
I'm trying to make sense of.
I have a hearing problem, so
Okay, I think I missed something. I understand. You said, is it the retention is what's going to drive the cost down? Is that what you're saying? With the ability to take aliens, either the house would cost determine is what you between.
you just take well, yeah, if I understand your question is how does the ABCD reduce costs in a portfolio like Patrick?
Yes.
Then the answer is, if somebody gives me respect, I'm going to return that. If somebody is not respecting me, treating me like somebody that they think they might be better than, then I'm going to resist. So it's an illustration of a group called Hapino operates a shelter for families like Caddy Second and Fawcett. And they saw a basic job at incorporating LN form design into a structured and getting to the ratio ratios. And it had a group of folks in Washington County that was anticipating opening a family shelter in Washington County. And the visitors saw some upholstered furniture in their visitor area. And we get a powerful on the staff. Oh my gosh, it must help to replace the couple of those couches of statue that is recovered. No, with the answer, they never had. Why? Because we expect our residents who may return to his death. So that's if we were able, by treating people better, to reduce our occupancy rates from 8% to 5%, just 3%, saves a lot of money.
Can you speak a little bit about how to bring agency and respect into the design of affordable housing? Like, are there strategies that you use within a housing unit that would make somebody be a long-term tenant versus a short-term tenant?
So I think it's an important part to figure out how we design things better. But the bulk of the housing ain't something that we just designed today, right? So we got to think about that as thought. And in manner of speaking, I don't want to minimize it at all, but it doesn't matter the design of the box. It matters how well the manager keeps the box clean, right? So go to a property where the trash is not being picked up, where I get a trash allowing the dumpster is not cleaned up, where the parking lot is not swept, a lot of the graffiti is not taken care of, and you're going to have yellow rest. Now, that's in an existing copy. On the other hand, CPID has been involved in projects for Canada well. And in some cases, arrived a little late. We were able to say to the owner and the projected rental, if your change fit us this way, it's going to function better. And those projects came out better as a result. So, earlier today we were talking about how to implement all this. And to me, after multiple decades in that world, housing world, doing the development side, I personally love the side. I figured I've done some pretty nice things. But I was raised as really kids. St. Peter's going to say, hey, what can you do? What do you know, Dale? You know, as years, you know, you're going to have to spend some time in purgatory. And your time in purgatory is going to be spent in comforting that. So, I think that model is broken, by the way. I think there are ways to fix it. But in an ABCD concept, you have to get owner, property manager, the architects, the engineers, the maintenance staff. Everybody has to have the same song sheet. They got to understand what the values that we're trying to, we're doing more and putting sticks and bricks to. We're doing a community.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Is it often that the different parties involved in the project have different values? So, like, if you have a property...
It's absolutely endemic.
Yeah.
It's good. And for you, there's not really any positive communication from the building in operators. And I was involved in the early stages, had a project in Australia, and we retained CPID to do an asset-based community one night toy, Kenyak Willie. And the community both there, we did another in Midway, I was involved. But him being responded, amazing. Is, oh my God, we have a chance to, amongst ourselves, like how let's do this can damage our purposes. And I was over that to be beneficial to the Titan. Great. Filter. Do this advantage. That's the one. And your brain. That's the community.
That's a community center. That's all it does. It's a little bit. It's a relatively small community that we were able to control out, so it could have its own city center thing.
And also has your head start so built into your community. So yeah. And this step zero. Okay. Pretty cool. That's not where the story is. The story is in St. Helens. Residents started moving on and tried to budget the story complete. And then delivering bicycles along the sidewalk. And property management said, if you can do that, they took bikes out the sidewalk and walked them up in a way. That, and one man I was speaking, the big theft. Like what was saying to the residents, we got the rules, you go to live by the rules. And that, in my view, set a dynamic in which the residents immediately felt disrespect. Here, and my belief is that it'll be very difficult to overcome that again to live just down the way to organize it. Or that, of course.
So, I think building on this question over here, an organization like CDP, as developers, are they able to spend more? I mean, I think CDP, in my opinion at least, does really nice projects. And it's my understanding also they spend more on design. Are they able to make that additional expenditure on design pencil because they understand the principles of better property management, dignity-based property management? Like, how are they able to do better designed buildings or pay more for architectural services than other affordable housing developers who ostensibly are operating off of the same funding as?
It's not kind of better or not. It's a rat in a hard case because he had immense amount of respect for the team at CPID. Or as they asked the whole family and gave me it, but had wisdom like this here. Couldn't say how long I was there. Because Johnny was a cat farm in Oregon, where there's in California. Entering, what the skating tours, we introduced the whole concept of ABCD to CDP, that project. It's like do this with it, but and we budgeted for our CAP services. To build what we put one like all an adequate budget for resident services. But we did start at the very beginning talking about human everything that are touchless culture, property management, even about which connect to like they're sensitive to what we're planning our costs. So I don't think that one I do know that significant benefit can deliver to those graduates. Can we get the maximum benefit? I don't think so. Because we haven't got far enough upstream. We haven't made it absolutely necessary for property management to embrace that issue that we are trying to create. It's all in that issue. So they take to present about these downloads. And then we started your occupancy a little better. The second generate player on it.
I guess both of our questions are stemming from the fact, like, coming to this as architects and designers, the way that we can bring dignity to this process is in the new housing market for new housing stock ceiling, creating like the best design possible to move forward the projects. And so I guess the question was sort of related to how do we, like, why are some affordable projects beautiful, like this Timber Ridge, amenitized, fast timber, et cetera, and then other new projects are not, and is coming from ostensibly the same funding mechanisms.
Well, you and I know, and you're the firm, work with CDP on an acquisition rehab in Salem. And I think the answer is, it's in the values of the people who kind of put it on it. So CDP is the owner and collaborating, Salem, which was terribly run down. It was a mess. There was an extra lot there. Yeah, got it. Then a site for more units. Be like it's instead CDP Electric had Tom had after like design it's very good have renowned so how it just made a difference in the way they elaborate form and residents built. So I think the answer to that, I'm an architect, I'm the guy who says I have to do something to figure it out. So, and I think it's just coaching the values.
If I can,
You can do more units. Sometimes it's better to do more with sight as I an opus.
I want to say two people can have the same material, start the same, kinds, like the approach, the creativity, perspective, and lens, the actual place. The same.
And I think, yeah, because it seems like one of the things that's interesting, having gone through 11 different architecture crunch over 20 targets in this ABCD process in the West. The interesting thing is if usually when you go into housing, the architect will have minimal contact with the community. Yeah, so again, a lot of it has to do with how well they listen and participate in the process of understanding the community, like really, because you're gonna have a good design that has nothing to do with community, but a good, and a good design that does have something to do with the community, and I think that's the difference. I think this Timber Ridge was highly successful because we totally embedded ourselves in the community, the architects, everybody embedded themselves. So
Who's the
in-house, it built it this, and they went and lived there practically, and they got to know the people, and they were fighting with they were, getting the young people. They got the state housing price because they're literally they just, they understood all the segments, even the segments that were not housing. And then we began to identify issues. The asset-based process identifies the challenges of communities that exist, like there might be somebody providing building challenge, the education that their community or your family, so they'll need that. So how do we, like in the Senate, we have people that work deeply to try to figure out how to reorganize and to fulfill that, and other assets, support other assets who are trying to introduce community for that. And so I think that it was not just integrating them, it wasn't like a shopping list, but we set up a series of meetings where they met with each one of the assets. We had these charrettes with every one of these assets and sat down with early childhood education and Oregon State agriculture program. So we had these series of conversations that informed final design neatly. So it's this kind of, and so I did that in Salem and some of the other projects. We've had these opportunities for these deep projects like Rockwood, which was an early project you guys did. We were so overwhelmed with all the planning, we didn't get the chance to do some of those conversations early on, though the day you guys did an amazing job design of it. But I think that we're now forms our body, like the largest body of asset-based projects in the country, we're beginning to now do post-occupancy studies with realizing this, that there's a threshold there about when and how the community can conversation with things. And Dan was saying something, I'm just going to get off, sorry, one here. But Dan was saying something, we were having a meeting, there's a group in Italy and Spain that are watching this at the same time simultaneously, but we were having a meeting with those culture groups, and Dan was saying, well, it's in America, there's always, like, the architect comes in, the developer, the builder, everyone has an agenda and interest they're bringing in. So moving from that individualized agenda and moving to an agenda that's about the community. And so you have to kind of get them to shift from their own personalized agenda that they bring to every project and shift to agenda which are effective housing. So if you did it in the Netherlands, everybody, the designer, the builders, everybody are like, we're here for housing. Right? Here, they're saying, what will the housing provide me? Stems to my art. So it's shifting that focus. It's challenges.
I have a question. At what point did you involve? Sorry, I am a property manager. I own a people first property management. This is my husband, Joe. We've both been doing affordable housing for the Gold Clark for years.
We're in Crucible.
We're in partner series. We're probably working with the first and then.
We all are.
But at what point was property management involved? Because what I found is that, so I am from Hawaii. I approach housing with a cultural lens of community. I also grew up marginalized, and if someone like me had taken care of my parents, I might have had a quicker start. And, I had to call myself up from affordable housing for couch surveying. So, and I've been very lucky because I've leveraged Joe's career to do what I do, and I just, because I go in and I clean up a lot of what property managers do, and I do believe in what you're saying. I think that it's important that we go through a community lens before we say, property management this, or development this, or architecture this. I think we need to look at things from a full cultural perspective and with the lens of the people that we serve. But as a property manager, I've only had 2 projects where they've included me first and said, Alicia, how are we going to best serve this community when you get it? And so at what point is property management involved
Hence, just bring my preference.
in practice?
In front of us, it's too late.
Too late? Yeah.
My preference is, at the minute we start talking about building projects, property management has to be involved. They have to embrace the culture that we're trying to create.
They had to, and they had to come to the table first to say this is what we're going to do. And that's the culture that if you're a future architect or if you're a future one of us, you need to say, I want to sit at that table so that I can better serve this community now. And it has been hard to make that culture shift. We are different than the rest of our peers.
Well, I think I may have just been a unicorn. I have been saying for years, there is no such thing as a consistently church party property management.
Until now. Oh, you should have. Yeah.
And you're working in a broken system.
I am. Yes. So can I tell a story about you with that? I recently had to fix the one because it is my job to hold the lease. Because when we talk about residents, we're talking, if you say property managers, it is my job to care for the building's collective, for the community at large. But the resident services, I tell my team, the resident services there for the individual to provide resources. But they are so tired. They're so tired. There's so much compassion burnout. If you see a social service person, degree person here, give them a big hug. They have no idea what they're about to run into. And this person that we were fixing,
she had been a longtime resident of this building, and this building was not made for a resident like her. She needed more supportive services than we can provide. But she was also a danger, and to hold dignity, to hold space, to what we did, Joe and I showed up the day the sheriff came. From the time I file an eviction to the time that a sheriff comes, it can be about 11 months. And in that time, this person can terrorize the community. Last night, Joe and I were there while a man who was having a mental break broke the historic glass building windows and TV. He assaulted my staff, and Joe and I had to run there to calm everyone down. Was in two different stories, but the first one, when she was evicted, when the sheriff came, they're there to exert force. They're there to say, you're no longer bless you. You're no longer a person that lives here. But Joe and I went there to hold dignity for her so that when she had to leave the building, she had what she needed. You won't find another affordable housing CEO who goes to a building and throws space for that person. The other one last night, I'm still in the middle of this, but we are asking that resident who is now in the psych ward for 3 days and a full 2 weeks longer than that. He needs more help than we can provide. He has relinquished keys to the unit effective immediately. And does anyone know why I would rather have keys now than later? Thanks to save his dignity so that he doesn't have an eviction on his record, so that later when I provide permanent supportive housing to him, he doesn't have an eviction on his record and he can come back if you are doing it, please instead. And so those are the conversations that we need to have, because we need to know what kind of glass doesn't break when someone has a mental health episode. We need to know that a veteran needs some soundproof walls, because at the time when 4th of July comes around and all of the bomb sounds are coming, he needs a safe place to hide. He needs a break, because property management won't know how to effectively control that mental health break unless you make very good design around face each other.
That's kind of what I meant when we said you're working at a working system.
I am.
If the system was working correctly, the bad that emergency came down and somebody's mental health has for domestic violence or whatever it is, the system would be there to take care of it. You ain't to job without that.
But it can be, because we should be, at the end of the day, we are so human. So we all are responsible for each other. And that's the conversation. But even though, yes, I am a property manager, I'm still going to have to own space, because everyone deserves it. Like,
So one of my questions was, how are the residents paying for even the rent? And I was wondering if it was subsidized or if it was given. But now I understand that these are people that are transitioning, these are individuals transitioning, probably from the students who will come on the services that was actually seeing behavioral health and then the community stability. So then I have a pretty bad choices are we at people says these bad people. But in the context is that there's a level of internal governance and development that this person understands the give and take in their team. So I'm wondering where that goes.
Yeah.
I didn't know about
Once again,
that.
it's a broken system. Okay. They use heard from your own experience, and I heard from other having marriage like quotes and lawyers and some of the social agencies that are responsible for dealing with data as a referral to the collaborator, and then they don't back it up. It's not this. They validated focus now, right? But we have to be, we have to do what we can do now. Yeah, hopefully we can change the system.
That's where I'm kind of, that's where I work. It's the internal governance and the context that they can be to that community. It needs to aim there with education. My mind is there. I came from a crisis stage, right? So I was on the streets. Then I was now transition, say that I'm no longer mixed, and I have some level of achievement on it. And I always was down in house. I now am stable from the crisis, right? However, I will have that internal context governance developed to understand why I should care about communities, kind of why I should imitate. And remember, if I'm on the streets in Bardic, I'm already thinking of society as alcohol and the humanities, and now. And so that engagement with from there to understand what the expectation is, there's building necessary. Right, and social services do the external portion of it. Right, and there isn't really that part like pay attention to that. And then I saw someone, there's the tip of the iceberg, like the human outside. It's just the outside. There's so much going on, especially in Friday, and I think to have real good, to foster community and connection, we need that intergovernance. We kind of need to start addressing how do we help develop that? How do we help reteach that as tradition? And this might not be for this one. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just feel bad because